Now, the Free State Agriculture wants authorities to stop farm attacks that have affected women and children. They're also demanding that investigations into allegations of corruption against local police officials and those implicated in livestock theft happen. FSA is concerned with how political factions have resorted to public violence instead of focusing on a solution to the murder problem. Now, joining us is Gerrie Botha, legal advisor to the Free State Agriculture. Gerrie, a very good morning to you, and thank you for your time. Just give us a sense of your thoughts as we're seeing EFF members stationed outside the court, farmers and farm workers also stationed in various areas as this matter gets underway in court.
Good morning. Yes, indeed. I think what we need to emphasize, and I've mentioned it in the past as well, the situation where we are currently, it's not a white and black situation. It's a situation where the community as a whole is putting their grievances and their feelings in as far as rural crime and crime in general is concerned on the table, and it stresses the fact that something needs to be done to address this as a matter of urgency.
Senegal farmers have given government 3 weeks to come up with some sort of safety plan. You speak about how this is not a race issue, but one that speaks to the crime situation. What would you like to see in this plan as government is given this ultimatum to deliver in 3 weeks?
Well, for starters, we need to address the investigation into the allegations of the corrupt police officials. Something needs to be done concerning that as an extreme urgent matter. And once that has been addressed, we need to focus on the situation as such. I mean, this is almost a provincial problem, and I think it's generally a situation where crime as such has such an impact on the community that it needs to be addressed.
Spoken about a direct correlation between livestock theft and farm attacks, and you've also mentioned in your statement here that it incites violence and this in essence perpetuates racial hatred. Let's expand a little bit on this and your thoughts around how racial hatred then becomes a focal point.
Once again, the real issue is crime in general. And if you are going to politicize the situation as it is, you're not focusing on the real problem. So if you want to address this effectively, you must start with crime. And it's not only rural crime that is applicable, it is crime in general. And I think that's a starting point to really address the issue.
Okay, on the line joining us, I'd like for you, Gerrie, to stay with us. On the line, we've got the family of the slain farm manager, Brendan Horner, who, of course, is at the center of the ongoing Senegal protests in the area. The family is still reeling in shock and pain following his death, which has triggered tension between lobby groups and political parties. Joining us to share the views of the Horner's family is spokesperson Gilly Scheepers. Gilly, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us, and condolences to you and the family. Talk to us about Brendan Horner. We don't know much about him. We know that he's a 21-year-old farm manager. Just tell us a little bit more about him.
Good morning to everybody. Gilly Scheepers speaking. You've asked about Brendan Horner. He was a top person, good mannered. A long time ago in my life, saw somebody with good manners like him. Was good natured. He had no enemies. He was really a super little young man, and he wasn't 22 years old. He was 21 years old. He was 22 years old and 9 months. But as I say, he was really developing in a top person.
And what sort of void has he left in the family?
No, I mean, as his dad asked Minister Becky Taylor the other day, what would he have done if it was his son? And the minister couldn't answer him because they haven't lost a son yet or a child. The parents are really, especially the mother, is in a very bad state about it. the death of a child, and especially the way he was killed as well. Because, I mean, he definitely didn't deserve to be killed in that manner, because he was such a super person.
Is there any hope that justice will be served in this matter? I mean, we've seen arrests happening. We're seeing what's transpiring outside court this morning as they make a second appearance in court.
Yeah, that's a tragedy. That's a tragedy for the country. I can't speak on other districts or other parts of the country. I'm speaking of where I am on the ground level. This is a disaster that's happening in our community at this stage, because this is a fight between it's absolutely a fight between criminals and law-abiding citizens. It's not a fight between white and black. It's definitely not in our area, and that's the point that's concerning me, is that this thing is politics. The politics is coming into it. So it's really, I don't think it's appropriate. And definitely Brendan Horner would never, ever in his life approved of something like this, even if he was a child. And what concerns me, I just saw a thing of the EFF at this stage. That worries me is that the EFF, in other words, we must say that the EFF supports a bunch of criminals. That's what they are doing with their type of behavior at this stage. So they supporting death and criminals, and that's the thing that's worrying me. It's not, as I want to repeat it again, it's not in our area. It's not a white to black problem that we've got.
And what do you have to say about those who were torching a police vehicle? I mean, you speak on one end about the EFF. What is your response and then reaction to those who torched a police vehicle?
No, I mean, you can't, I'm not actually that good in English, but I don't know how to explain myself.
Fine.
But to go and try and retaliate crime on crime, I don't think that's the right thing. I definitely don't. I don't think that's the right thing. I don't approve of that, and that's how I feel about it.
I'd like for you to please stay on the line for us as I go to Gerrie Botha. Gerrie, you've listened and heard a lot of what Gilly has been saying, especially about what's transpiring outside of court this morning. What do you have to say about that?
Well, that is the feeling on the ground, and that's the feeling in the area where Brandon used to reside. I mean, it speaks for itself. I can't disagree with Mr. Scheepers in that sense.
And in terms of, you know, we've been hearing a lot. This topic has generated many other subtopics, and we're hearing about self-defense weapons training camps that are happening within the areas. How much do you know about that?
I'm not really have knowledge pertaining to the matter. I know that there is, all over the country, there is self-defense training going on. I mean, within the rural safety strategy, there is also provisions for education and that kind of stuff. I mean, if, at the end of the day, if you as an individual feel you must protect yourself and you must get the proper training within the ambits of the law, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from doing it as long as it's within the provisions that is in the law.
They speak about this weapons training and, you know, comparing it to the way it's like Israeli Defense Force tactics that they're speaking of. They're not just speaking of general self-defense, but so it sparks some sort of fears and a danger that something could escalate, a civil war even, with this kind of training.
Well, to tell you the truth, once again, I'm not knowledgeable about the training in itself. As long as it's within the ambits of the law, and it is based on the fact that you of self-protection. I mean, that is really what should be done. But once again, I'm not knowledgeable about the subject as such.
Okay, I'd like for you to also still stay with us, Gerrie, as I go to Gilly Scheepers to talk to us about your final thoughts, Mr. Scheepers, before we say goodbye to you, just in terms of what you're calling. I mean, Brendan Horner's death has sparked massive protests, and really we've seen violence, we've seen members gathered outside of court, farmers in prayer. What are your final thoughts as this day happens and we're learning of some of the dangers that could transpire without preempting anything, that, you know, something could spark, and the fears that the planned protest could lead to chaos, especially as we know that farmers handle firearms as part of their own day-to-day protection?
Yeah, that I don't really think that that's going to be the outcome of this. What I think is, I mean, we as Christians, the biggest law of a Christian is you must love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I think that's got to be applied. That's got to be applied, and I'm really putting a pledge out to say we must please don't pray about this. We must pray for love for one another. We must practice love for one another, and leave us as community to get the murderers of Brendan, and leave us alone. We on ground level, we'll sort that out. We're busy with no stone will be unturned until we get the murderers of Brendan Horner.
And very lastly, what punishment are you hoping that the killers will get?
No, I don't know. That's not for me to decide what will happen to them. But people like that don't need to be in a community. I mean, they don't need to be. They can't be in a community. People like that. Those people must be put behind bars for the right period of time that will perhaps make them better people, or they must stay there for life. I don't know. I'm not a judge. I'm just an ordinary citizen. So that's how I see it.
Thank you so much for your time, family spokesperson of Brendan Horner, Gilly Scheepers, and also thanking Gerrie Botha for his time, legal advisor for the Free State Agriculture.